I want to start with something simple. Thank you. Thank you for your time, for your attention, for choosing to spend part of your day with us. I also want to thank our partners, ChargeBee and Xero, for joining us today, and all of our presenters for the great conversations throughout the day. Virtual conferences don't come with hallway conversations or shared coffee breaks. They come with email notifications, calendar reminders, and Slack messages lighting up in the background. Am I right? And yet, you showed up. You leaned in. You engaged. You invested your time in thinking about the future of commerce. Today, we talked about innovation. We've explored the new developer.avalara experience. We've looked at automation, AI, integrations with Visori, and how our MCP service can help you build faster. We also learned today that some people at Avalara have quite a following. But as a product person, I still like to think we're the original influencers. Now, as we close, I want to zoom out. Not to recap features, not to summarize announcements. I want to talk about something bigger, something foundational. Something that, if we do it right, most people may never have to think about again. And I'm going to try to convince you of something, that we are at a defining moment for compliance. And this ecosystem has the opportunity to shape what comes next. Let me explain. Most people don't think about their operating system. You wake up, you open your laptop, you launch an app, you send a message. You think about what you're trying to accomplish. You don't think about what makes it possible. You don't think about the background processes. You don't think about system coordination. You don't think about the invisible layers managing everything beneath the surface. You just expect it to work. But remove the operating system, and nothing works. The screen freezes, the workflow collapses, everything stops. And in that moment, you realize something. The most important system in the room was the one you never talked about. Commerce works the same way. It runs on systems most people never see until something breaks. Customers think about their use cases, product teams are thinking about features, leaders are thinking about revenue, but compliance is different. Now, many of you think about it every day. You design it, you integrate it, you safeguard it. And to be clear, I mean transaction compliance in global commerce. Tax, invoicing, reporting, the rules businesses have to get right in real time. But for most of the business, compliance only becomes visible when something goes wrong. And to be clear, I mean transaction compliance in global commerce. Tax, invoicing, reporting, the rules businesses have to get right in real time. But for most of the business, compliance only becomes visible when something goes wrong. And when it does, it becomes very visible. For years, compliance has lived beside the workflow, integrated through APIs, connected to ERP systems and e-commerce platforms, but still operating beside the workflow. It was something you monitored, something you reconciled, something you actively managed. These integrations responded to events, they executed reliably, but they did not govern continuously within the workflow. What's changing now goes deeper than integration. Compliance is moving from an application next to the workflow to infrastructure embedded within the workflow. And this shift wasn't possible even a few years ago. It required something new. AI that can interpret context. Agents that can operate across systems. Software that can move beyond execution into coordination. Beyond automation, into something more adaptive. That's what makes this moment different. That's what makes the invisible infrastructure possible. Let me give you an example. One that anyone who has ever dealt with tax on a transaction will immediately recognize. Think about a finance or operation team reviewing an invoice. The invoice is there, the transaction went through, but the tax amount looks unusual. Maybe it's higher than expected. Maybe a product line was taxed differently than last month. Maybe a jurisdiction appeared that no one noticed before. And suddenly, the workflow pauses. Someone asks, why is a tax like this? And that question has started more internal email threads than anyone would like to admit. The operation team checks the invoice, accounting looks at the tax configuration, someone opens a support ticket, someone else emails the tax team, but eventually someone explains it. But the explanation doesn't happen where the transaction lives. It happens in a meeting, or in an email thread, or in a support queue. Now imagine that same moment differently. The invoice is open in the ERP. The tax amount looks different, but instead of escalating the question, the system explains it. Right there on the transaction page, the question gets answered instantly. No escalation, no ticket, no meeting. The business keeps moving. There's another moment every finance team knows. Month end. The numbers don't match. Maybe a transaction didn't post, maybe a value changed. Nothing is obviously broken, but something doesn't match. And now the work begins. Spreadsheets get created, exports are done, there's an investigation, and usually the person doing that investigation is a person who already has too much to do at the end of the month. Now imagine that process differently. An AI assistant compares ERP invoices directly with AvaTax records. It flags mismatches, identifies inconsistencies, and guides resolution. Month-end close is faster, issues are caught earlier, and the system is doing the work. And both of these experiences, tax transparency and AI-assisted reconciliation, are already documented on developer.avalara.com. These examples are the kinds of workflows this ecosystem can start embedding directly into the systems where commerce happens. But infrastructure shouldn't only explain tax, and it shouldn't only reconcile transactions after the fact. The real goal is to prevent issues from entering the workflow in the first place. One workflow we're really excited about is helping customers manage their use tax as part of their workflow. Think about accounts payable. An invoice arrives in an inbox, an AP clerk manually enters the values into the ERP. The ERP processes the invoice, but did anybody check to see if they were charged the correct tax? What if the tax was wrong? Now imagine an agent inside Outlook that is monitoring the AP invoice inbox. An invoice comes in, the agent detects the invoice. It validates tax automatically, determines if you're underpaying or overpaying before the transaction flows into your ERP system. If everything checks out, it flows directly into the ERP. If something is wrong, the system flags the invoice, prepares an email to the vendor with details on what needs to be corrected, and the invoice is fixed before it ever enters the ERP. That's compliance embedded inside the workflow. And when that layer of compliance exists inside the workflow, commerce moves without delay. When commerce operates continuously, something changes. The business stops asking, are we compliant? It starts assuming it is. The pauses disappear, speed increases. That's the real shift. It's not automation. It's confidence, because the systems underneath is trusted. That's what confidence does. And that is where this ecosystem comes in. The future doesn't build itself. It gets designed, it gets embedded, it gets built into the systems commerce depends on. And that's the responsibility in this room. Now, this happens in code and documentation. It happens in the developer experience. Developer.avalara is one of the places where we support that experience. You've seen the refreshed developer site, but what's coming next is even more important. Our revitalized and expanded developer community is launching soon. A place where builders connect with builders, where patterns and experiences are shared. we're also expanding the playground with more tools and more capabilities. And yes, I know saying go spend more time in the playground to a room full of adults sounds a little odd. But this is where confidence gets built before customers ever feel the risk. You can experiment with new integrations, explore new ways to simulate real-world scenarios before deploying to production. I believe the stronger the developer experience, the stronger the ecosystem. And the stronger the ecosystem, the more confidently commerce moves. And we've seen this infrastructure building pattern before. Think about payments. Global payments used to be incredibly complex. Currency conversions, fraud detection, regional banking rules, security compliance, settlement across countries. And every new market added friction. Every expansion required coordination. Every transaction carried risk. But then something changed. Developers integrated payment platforms. And the complexity didn't disappear, it was absorbed. Consumers just tap and pay. Merchants just sell globally. It became infrastructure. That's exactly the moment compliance is entering now. Regulatory requirements are becoming real time. Data requirements are becoming more structured. Governments are moving from periodic reporting to continuous visibility. And commerce is moving across more borders, more channels, and more systems than ever before. In that world, compliance cannot remain something businesses manage on the side. It cannot be something reviewed after growth happened. It has to move at the speed of business. It has to operate inside the flow of commerce. That's the invisible revolution. And that is what the new default looks like. And shifts like this don't just happen. They get built by you. They get built into the systems commerce depends on. This is the moment where the responsibility shifts to this room. You are deciding what the next decade of commerce feels like. Every integration you design determines whether compliance is friction or confidence. Every workflow you embed determines whether growth pauses or flows. Every API you connect determines whether regulatory change triggers escalation or simply adapts silently in the background. You're not adding features, you're shaping how commerce handles complexity. This ecosystem is not here to bolt on tools. It is here to absorb complexity, to translate regulation into code, to turn mandates into invisible logic, to make governance feel native to the workflow. So here's the invitation. Go deeper. Explore developer.avalara, join the upcoming community, experiment in the playground, and test these scenarios before your customers ever feel risk. Build integrations that remove hesitation, because this invisible infrastructure won't build itself. At the beginning of the keynote, I said I was going to try to convince you of something, that this is a defining moment, that compliance is becoming infrastructure, and that we have a narrow window to shape it. If you believe that, then the work starts now. So the question is, who builds it? Let's go build it.